that, I will delay no further, and if we could proceed with roll call, that would be terrific.
Member Barnett. Here. Member Harrell.
Here.
Member Inocencio.
Here.
Member Lange.
Here.
Member Rum.
Here.
Member Rodriguez.
Present.
Member Square. Member Steffi.
Here.
Member Wiseman. Vice Chair Weeks.
Here.
Chair Graves is absent. Let the record show that all members are present except for Member Square, Member Wiseman, and Chair Graves.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And with that, I would like us to transition to item number 2, public comments. Is there anyone that would like to provide comment on items that are not currently on the agenda? Do we have anyone on Zoom?
We do have one hand raised from our Mayor Rogers. Give me one moment, please. Mayor
Good evening,
Rogers.
folks.
Good evening.
First and foremost, I just want to call in and congratulate you guys on getting into your hybrid move. It's going to be fun for the meeting, I'm sure. But mostly I want to call it, I just wanted to thank everybody who serves on the Community Advisory Board. It obviously has been really difficult to engage the community through the pandemic. And I just want to appreciate all of the effort that you put in and day out, month in and month out, to make sure that other voices across our community are heard. If it works for you guys, I'm going to sit in and listen for the remainder of the meeting, but really just wanted to start off with a sincere thank you for everything that you're doing for the community. I see it, our staff sees it, our other city council members see it, and we just couldn't appreciate you enough. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much, Mayor Rogers. There are no other hands raised for public comment and no public comment in the room.
All right, wonderful. Yes, thank you very much for joining us tonight, Mayor Rogers. With that, we will proceed to the approval of the minutes.
I move we approve them.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we
Wonderful.
proceed to the vote?
And for the approval of minutes, we'll start with Member Barnett,
Approve.
Member Harrell,
Approve.
Member Inocencio,
Approve.
Member Lange,
Approve.
Member Rum,
Approve.
Member Rodriguez,
Approve.
Member Steffi.
Approve.
Thank you. The motion and vote to approve minutes has been approved.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think my name was
You're right. I'm sorry, Vice Chair Weeks.
approved.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will proceed to CAB announcements. Does anyone either on Zoom or here in the room have anything they'd like to share with the rest of the group? Member Barnett, go ahead.
Welcome, everyone. I brought meatballs. They're here in the room. The entire community of Santa Rosa is invited to come down and enjoy them.
Member Lange, go right ahead.
All right, thank you. I have quite a few updates of things I'd like to share from the other things that I engage in the community. First being that the Santa Rosa Police Department has worked really diligently on improving their take back of the feedback from the community and have developed their implicit bias training. I had the opportunity to sit with a number of community members through the training as they were preparing to present it to the officers. And so we were able to sit through the 4 hours and then provide feedback. There are Sonoma County Tourism Board is also another board that I sit on, which is really looking at launching out and rolling out their community initiatives as a part of their greater general plan. So there will be more details in the coming weeks that I'll be able to share with you all on how we can engage, but they're really building out the arm of lived experience instead of the high focus on hiking and wine. But they also have some pretty cool initiatives that they launched with influencers that I encourage you all to visit on the Sonoma County Tourism website to see some of the things that are coming up. And on October 15th, Sonoma County Black Forum will launch 2 of their ARPA programs. One is the Black Therapy Fund, which is access to 12 vouchers at the rate of $150 for therapy with a network of therapists that have been pulled together from the greater Bay Area. So it is expansive for language access, anyone BIPOC identified, and gender non-conforming, so that there's outreach and resource for everybody. In the state of California, the youngest a person can obtain therapy services without parent permission is 13. So especially if you know any youth that are interested in this, there are about 280 people that can receive this. And then the rapid assistance, rental assistance, and financial assistance program application will launch on that day as well. So anyone facing housing insecurity. So we've been working in partnership with First Five, 4Cs as their program unravels, although it's centered on families to help couch the overflow of folks that may not qualify.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And now moving to our colleagues on Zoom. Member Seppi, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you sort of in person. My updates are pretty short. One is I've been volunteering a lot at the Santa Rosa Rural Cemetery, which is an amazing jewel of a park we have in Santa Rosa. Work parties on third Saturday of each month, and they're very rewarding. I didn't make it to Lamplight, which is a great fundraiser, but I hope to next year. And also I've been working since February on an issue trying to change the city code on vicious and dangerous animals based on something that happened in my neighborhood back in February where some dogs sought out and killed some cats in their backyard. So the good news is we're moving it forward. We met with the Public Safety Subcommittee. It's going to come to full City Council on October 24th or November 1st, I'm not sure, for a full vote to alter the code. So it's pretty exciting. If anyone wants to attend that City Council meeting, I think it's a good step forward because it means that if your animal gets injured or killed by another animal, that dog or animal can be deemed vicious. Pending a hearing, they'll be impounded. And now they have to kill or injure a human to impound the animal. So it's been a long process, but I appreciate my council member and the city attorney's office who've been making a lot of good progress on that. And the other thing is the election is like, what, 6 weeks away? I just urge all my contacts, which I've been doing the last several weeks, to get involved in the election. I'm volunteering, I'm knocking on doors and doing all the stuff for the candidate I hope wins District 4, which is my district. But if we can all get out there and just talk to our friends and neighbors and get people more engaged, it's really good to feel a part of choosing who's going to represent us. And there's some forums and debates coming up as well. League of Women Voters has some. You can go to their webpage. So that's it for my updates for now. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, thank you so much, Member Seppi. Member Harrell.
Yes, good evening. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I had a 5 o'clock meeting that I had to do here in Oakmont. And it is nice to see everybody. I hope to be able to do this in the future in person. We in Oakmont here have been working on a couple of things that are starting to come together. One is, I don't know if you're familiar with Sonoma Ecology Center, but they are a nonprofit organization that helps communities do fire resilience studies and in their common spaces, and then help them give them a report, an extensive report on how to become more fire resilient in an ecological and environmentally safe way. And they did a report for us last year for the community up towards Annandale. And now this time, because the glass fire came from the other side of Oakmont across Highway 12, we asked them to do a study for us and a report that we could work from to try to make the common areas on that side where the fire came in this time more fire resilient, and also still take care of the critters and the creeks and that type of thing. So it's a great combination of skills. They can also provide the work itself if you want them to do it. And they have give you a price, et cetera. But that's been very, very helpful for us, for the board. I'm on the Oakmont board and also Firewise committee liaison. And so we're just trying to make sure we're doing our part to make Oakmont as safe as it can be. The other thing is we've been working with the city planners. The senior city planners at Santa Rosa have been wonderful to work with. We're excited about their general plan that they're working on, and we've been trying to give feedback for our issues, and they've been very responsive, and I think they're doing a great job. So I just wanted to let the mayor know who's on the line. So that's all I have to report. Oh, wait, the reason we're so interested in the general plan is not only because it affects Oakmont, but Oakmont is doing its own thinking with input from all the residents with this hired consultant called Oakmont 2030. What do we want Oakmont to look like and be like in 2030? So it just dovetails right into what the city is now doing. So we're very excited about the progress and input that we're getting from the residents.
All right, thank you so much, Member Harrell. And I would certainly echo the comment that I'm very appreciative of all the hard work that the staff are doing to help us bring that vision to life. So thank you for sharing those thoughts. Member Steffi, just to confirm, you don't have additional comment, right?
No, I do not.
Celebrating the 5th anniversary of the 2017 wildfires coming up on October 8th. I encourage everyone, if they're able to join us, and I think we're memorializing that day and remembering what we went through collectively. And then there's also going to be a gun buyback event. So if you know anyone that's trying to shed some of their firearms, this is a unique opportunity to do so with, I think, no consequences. You just, I think, turn them in and that's it. So be sure to spread the word on that. And the final thing I'd just like to comment on is the third study session that pertains to the kind of city analysis of how they want to move forward in terms of consolidating their campus into maybe 1 or 2 locations. It's coming up. It's actually going to be taking place, I believe, on, I want to say, I can find the document. I want to say it's either the 11th or the 14th of October. So it's a really unique opportunity to weigh on kind of what you see as the vision for the city of for downtown Santa Rosa. And I personally am very vested in it, through my work and everything I do. And I would encourage you to spread the word and let people know so that they can show up and provide comments. I think one of the really unique things that they're looking to do is actually open up Santa Rosa Creek. So be sure to share that where you can. And with that, I think we are all good. So we will move on to staff updates.
Okay, all right. So I did want to confirm that Member Steffi was mentioning the amendment to the animal control ordinance that is going to happen October 25th. So that we can, I keep looking at you like you could see me, but you see the back of my head. Yeah, okay. So if folks want to join, it is that day. So I just wanted to confirm that. In terms of understanding where our staffing level is right now, which I really appreciate everybody's patience. We are down our one community engagement coordinator because as we've mentioned, Danielle was promoted and is now going to be doing a wonderful job with violence prevention. So we're hoping that position will be filled by, fingers crossed, the end of November, we'll have a body. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And then moving forward to fill the rest of the violence prevention partnership position, the last position, which is the program manager. So we are working with folks to make sure that that vision is kind of revamped and we're not just operating on something that was developed 20 years ago, that we are talking about being, the importance of being trauma informed and community led. So all of those sort of nuances that have happened in the very recent time. The other update I wanted to mention was the Hearn Community Hub project. Thank you to all the community that's been coming out and supporting and giving us feedback and guidance on what the community sort of vision is for its fire station, a library, and a multicultural center. But the city, again, does not want to assume what a multicultural center is. We want to make sure we're capturing community input. And very importantly, we'd love to see more young people, more youth involved in this conversation to see, what are the services and programs that they'd like to see. In the recent community listening sessions, we've heard a lot from parents who want to see more pro-social activities for youth, for community members who have neighborhood groups, and they're like, we don't have anywhere to meet. We'd love to have a meeting space. There's been a lot of conversation around emergency management and having a meeting space for that. So lots of great feedback, lots of great stuff. And there is a meeting coming up tomorrow. So we do have our flyers on our Let's Connect website. And I also brought some flyers here in person that you can have along with one of our members, Meatballs, if you come down. So we do have that flyer, and then we also have the flyer for October 6th, which will be the last opportunity in terms of community to give feedback. And then RDC, which is Ross Rosenberry, it will be synthesizing that information and presenting it here at the CAG meeting on November 16th. That's going to be a crucial meeting because y'all will be the first to get this great information on what the community has said, what the community would like, and then programmatically what would be potentially possible on that site. So, and then just to add more to Vice Chair Weeks, the gun buyback program, please help us get the word out. The Office of Community Engagement is actually leading this effort, co-leading this with the Santa Rosa Police Department. And it, like you mentioned, no questions will be asked. We are giving out cash. So $200 for handguns and shotguns, $300 for assault rifles and ghost guns. And transactions are anonymous. It will literally be a drive-through event. So we ask people who want to participate, please have your weapon in the trunk so that, and unloaded, so that we can easily take it out and then just go to the next station and we'll have that cash ready. That's going to be taking place at the Bridge Church, which is on 301 Fulton Road in Santa Rosa on Saturday, October 22nd from 11 to 3 p.m. And we want to thank the Bridge Church for allowing us to use their location. So if anybody has any questions, please contact me at mdeus@srcity.org. And I'm happy to answer. We've already received a number of emails and phone calls. So it's really great to know that people are excited and looking forward to this event. And with that, I believe that is the end of my reports. But
quick question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Do you recall what the number of guns that were, I think, because we had an event not too long ago, the exact same one, and wasn't it something like 150 guns were brought in?
in Petaluma.
Oh, that was in Petaluma.
Yeah.
Still, that's.
A really good amount. Yeah. I can actually share some stats if that's okay with folks really quick to kind of bolster the point of that. Today, Sergeant Brandon Matthews from the SRPD shared with us that ghost guns, as we know, have been on an increase. There have been 55% increase on firearms related arrests this year, 75% increase in firearms seized this year. There has been a 31% decrease in shootings this year because of the efforts that SRPD has launched. Unfortunately, we are at 10 homicides this year, most of those being gun related, and that is actually the highest on record. for a year in Santa Rosa. So just some 10 homicides this year. I believe last year we were at 6 in total. And yeah, unfortunately, we are at 10 already. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
On the flyer that takes you to the Let's Plan Together, I'm wondering if I'm just not seeing it. I'm trying to see if there's an overview map of the parcel site, or is that going to parcels, people can kind of get a bird's eye view of what's there right now, and then potentially overview plans.
Thank you. Yes, so at the event, RDC has done this really great activity that's hands-on for the community that helps people kind of like pinpoint, on the 6-acre lot, sort of part of their vision. So it does give you a great aerial view. And they're also putting together a video and also asking people, what would you like to name it? Because the Hearn Community Hub is just a placeholder. It's not going to be called that. But we want to know from the community, what name do you think would be most appropriate? And also the sort of essence of the building. There are surveys. So if you go to the Let's Connect page, there are many surveys, and also people can comment, add feedback, suggestions, ask questions, and then our team will be answering those and or taking whatever comments or suggestions over to our consultants, who will be bringing that information in with the whole of what we collect. That's it.
Member Steffi, I just want to check again because your hand is up. Oh, okay, you don't have any comment to provide? Okay, I just wanted to make sure we weren't ignoring you. Well, with that, then we will proceed to schedule items. Item 6, and specifically item 6.
Sorry, first, Vice Chair, could we please open it up to public comment?
You're absolutely right. Yes. Would anyone like to provide public comment? And do we have anyone on Zoom?
There are currently no hands raised for public comment virtually and no public comment in person. Thank you.
Wonderful. With that, we will close public comment and officially now move on to item 6.1, next steps, implementing strategic plan objective. With that, I'll hand it back to Macaulay.
Yes, so I do want to give an update and also thank everybody who participated in the Civic 101 videos. So as some of you know, we put together videos to help community understand how to engage with local government. We're very excited. The production company is putting those together, and hopefully we'll have something for us in draft form to view by next month so that we can share out with community. We are also continuing to work with our, in collaboration with that, our city attorney's office for the residents guidebook. And since it's been about a year since we put that together, I know not all of our members were on board back then. There's definitely potentially an opportunity to revise that. So with that, I think in the last meeting that we had in July, there was conversation with CAB around really trying to focus in on what could be offered in terms of extending capacity now that COVID is sort of allowing us a little bit more space, into sort of launching more with district need engagement. And so I was hoping we could have a discussion, and I can take some robust notes here on now that we're looking at potentially a new landscape and being able to go out and do community engagement. What is the feasibility of the level of engagement that CAB is able to do, aside from helping us get the word out on events? What is the capacity at this point? Because I think it's changed since maybe we last visited that.
Jump in. So are you talking about being at events? Are you talking about can you expand on that?
Sure. So event participation. Also, there's been quite a bit of requests for, I've had the opportunity to meet with all of our council members and do sort of a survey of like top 5 needs of community engagement in your district. And it's very interesting, but most of them can be really narrowed down to 3 things. And all of them kind of lead to what I understand Neighbor Fest was. Because they want resources on fire and emergency management. They want to see more neighborhood group cohesion. And there are a lot of questions around public safety. So those 3 elements, if I understood Neighbor Fest correctly, which I think some of y'all were in attendance to those Neighbor Fest that happened, it sounds like if we have to create like a recipe and follow that for all the districts so we can give everybody the same experience. I just wanted to put that out there. Any comments? Yeah.
So having gone to the Neighbor Fest, I think one of the step 1s for this would be going to our responding departments that participated in Neighbor Fest, because one of the challenges that came out of it was bandwidth. And that so the first rounds were pretty robust as far as how many neighborhoods participated, and it was awesome, but we pulled a lot of resources from a lot of different departments. In addition to, we also had American Red Cross. We also had some healthcare partners that were in the neighborhood. And I'm trying to think of what other resources we brought in. And then also just the mapping project. So out of the Office of Community Engagement, one of the tools that we did was a neighborhood mapping project where we did an overview of what the actual neighborhood looked like. And residents were able to fill in where they fit on the map, and then resources at hand. So it was a way for the neighborhood to kind of have its own little directory of who's where. The idea being in a shelter-in-place situation, who had advanced skills, who had resources that could help the neighborhood, and in the incident of an evacuation, who would need help. So being able to do a needs assessment of who doesn't own a car, who had an impairment, who are the folks in the neighborhood that need to be checked on and make sure that they can evacuate. So that was a couple of resource things that came out of Neighbor Fest. But I want to caution, I think that we kind of need to check in with other departments of what their bandwidth is before we go down that road again, because while they were fantastic events, I just remember distinctly there was a lot of resource pull, and these departments have budgets, and they have a big one being a staffing budget. And we wanted to kind of check in on how many things they're being asked ahead of before we look at how many, because I want to say distinctively the first year we did quite a few. Who was it? Cal, you were there, 8. It was big. It was quite a few neighborhoods that first year. And I don't think we want to go we had to, checking with those departments beforehand, kind of step 1, and then deciding on the parameters. And I think we still have all the information from San Francisco and from both Daniel Hornsby and Daniel Aldrich's presentations on why we want to do a Neighbor Fest. I think those are all still, in fact, I could probably pull up the YouTube video when we brought Daniel Aldrich here to talk about social cohesion and the kind of the framework that led to why you want to do a Neighbor Fest.
Go right ahead.
So being a new member, can you give me an outline of what Neighbor Fest was and what it is? Because when you talk about resources, I have no idea what a Neighbor Fest is.
I'm gonna defer to the CAB members that were present because I wasn't here yet.
Let's rock and roll. All right, so this was an outcome from the 2017 fires. The community engagement director at the time started doing some research on disaster not just recovery, but resilience. In other words, what neighborhoods came back after a major disaster. And that led to her finding research from Daniel Aldrich and Daniel Hornsby. And they came and gave a presentation to the city of Santa Rosa and the responding agencies and departments around NeighborFest. In a nutshell, it's a block party. And we, as the community advisory board, gave out grants to host a block party. But there were two main tasks that came out of it. One, we brought the fire department.
Your sound went out.
Idea being was to give neighbors the resources for disaster preparedness and response. And we did a mapping project. And that was a very key part of the Neighbor Fest, was bringing all the neighbors together, mapping the neighborhood, mapping neighborhood resources, who's in the neighborhood, who has needs. And the idea being an emergency response situation. The research that led to all of this was that, so Daniel Aldrich traveled the world and went to disasters all over the world. He himself was a survivor of a natural disaster, but he went to Japan after the tsunami. He went to New Zealand after the earthquake. And he came to Sonoma County after the fires. And his compiling research was, it did not matter how high the water came. What mattered was whether or not people gave a damn about each other in their neighborhood. Did they know each other? Were they connected to each other? Did they have informal bumping places? Were there conversations going on? Did people have the informal interconnectedness in their neighborhood? And that singular reason led to, and you look at the models 5 and 10 years out, who came back, which neighborhoods came back, and how strong they came back. In other words, who was willing to fight for it because it mattered. And that was the framework for NeighborFest. The idea of creating an event, bringing city resources to folks, and at the same time having a connecting tool so that everybody knows who's in the neighborhood, and who has higher skills, who has resources for the neighborhood, and also who have greater needs for the neighborhood. The idea being that we don't want a situation ever again where somebody doesn't get a knock on the door at 3 a.m. told, you need to get out and we're here to help. So that was the premise behind all of that in a nutshell. And also block party.
And so where did that information go?
It's a great question. Because I know we have Danielle, who I can refer to as Community Engagement Apedia, right? Some of the stuff is buried on the city website, I'm quite certain. And we've done a website update, but it's still, I refer to the city website as this incredible resource, but it's kind of like grocery outlet. You never entirely know what you're getting into when you walk in. And if you do a search, it might take you down a completely different aisle that you didn't know about, and Brandon, I was like, I don't know anything about that, right? But it's got a lot of information that's really helpful. So if you were to do a search on the city website under NeighborFest, I'm gonna go 70-30 odds that you'll actually get to the documents that you need. But it might be one of those things where we have to rope in Danielle and Community Engagement Apedia to pull up the historic documents from that. Just saying. There are grant applications, however. So those, as far as I know, are public documents. So the grant applications would be probably also another one of the starting points of, because the neighbors had to do the work. That's the key thing about it, is we gave them money, right? We cut the check, but the neighbors had to form a committee. They had to identify a date. They had to get, kind of like, this is when we're having it. And then our half was, or I should say, the Office of Community Engagement's half was going to the different departments, locking it in, saying, can we make this all work? And these times, and then barricades, right? Because we closed the street down, things like that. So it was a city neighborhood partnership. But good question on where the historic documents and all that are. I would say the starting point would probably be the grant applications, because that would probably give us the best outline of what the framework was for NeighborFest. And then everything else, to be perfectly honest, we could do some searching on the city website. It might be faster for me to do a search through my Gmail, just saying. So, but yeah, that would be my starting point with it, is looking at the grant applications from when we were offering the program.
And so if we hypothetically have this neighbor fest and it's in this situation, you get this committee and they're doing their work, and so they're kind of governing body, that individual who, like, we have a closed Facebook group in Coffee Park, and we know to go to the left. If there's an emergency, you knock on the house next to you on the left, and everybody knocks on the door on the left. And that's kind of an unspoken rule, but there's got to be some sort of, you come up with that person doesn't have any family, doesn't need help, someone needs to reach out to them. That's that committee within that neighborhood that's kind of managing that is what we're saying, right? I mean, you're mapping out who needs help and who needs support within your community. We're not giving that to the police department to say, oh, Mrs. Jones needs help because she doesn't have anybody or doesn't have a car, but that's a community created environment.
Correct. So the city of Santa Rosa has some really dedicated police officers and firefighters, but in each department, we're talking less than 200 in a city of 190,000. And we are very aware how heavily they were overrun in multiple instances. The other thing we had to take into consideration, they haven't gotten a break, right? They haven't had a season off, and they don't have the ability to stop doing all the other services they were providing. And so that was part of the other goal of NeighborFest, is that it's straight up, it's a bandwidth issue of that neighbors helping neighbors. Because even on the best response time in an emergency situation, you know, we even with shared assist, right? We're talking a couple, you know, we can bring in hundreds of first responders, but in an emergency situation response, when every minute counts, we need to be able to get our neighbors interconnected to one each other to help one each other, because that was a takeaway from all of it, you know. So yeah, and that's where it can be the committee. It can also just be that neighbors in the immediate, right? No, and the other key thing too is that if you're going on vacation, right, and you are one of those people who is responsible, letting your other neighborhood leads know. Some neighborhoods did it through Nextdoor. It does work in some cases, but a lot of the whole point of NeighborFest is truly just the face-to-face interaction. So yeah.
So, Member Harrell, I have seen you waiting patiently, and now I'd like to offer you the opportunity. Please go right ahead.
Well, I'm excited to hear you talking about the Neighbor Fest, which I didn't know about. I just wanted to tell you what we're doing here in Oakmont, because this is a senior community with people over 55. We have 2 emergency planning things, and one of them is Map Your Neighborhood, which is a new development for us in the last couple of years. And there's a very simple DVD that you bring 20 neighbors. They've decided that 20 neighbors is about the size that you can look after during not 50, not 60. And you get together, have food, you raise questions, who has special skills, who has saws, who has ladders, who has something they could break into if the door doesn't open and the woman is in there without she's in a wheelchair, can't get out. We have on my street, we have 4 widows on my street, and 2 or 3 of them can't drive. So we've broken up the street into 2 sections, and I have 4 or 5 people that I have to go to before I leave. If I'm leaving for my own emergency, I have to also let them know, where are they? There is an emergency. Are they able to get out? People next door to me on the left, the wife's in a wheelchair, and the husband can still drive, but they hardly come out of their house, and he has hearing aids, so he won't hear anything if somebody comes knocking on the door. So one of the things I did in 2017, when I went to get someone who I knew had been up all night the night before with her partner, I actually had to turn the power was out. I had to turn my lights. When you push your emergency button on your car, on your remote, the lights flash and the horn starts blowing. That's the only way I could get her attention and wake her up and get her out. Wild Oak. I called 911, and they were just totally not able to help. It just said, I said, there's a glow of red right over here by my house. And she said, well, everybody's busy. I guess, if you see flames, call me back. I'm like, I guess we're on our own. And that's, we've learned a lot since then, but the neighbors breaking down into 20 houses, we have like 4,700 people here and 3,200 homes. So we're working on trying to get each 20 homes, we're not there yet, but I'd say we're about 50%. But the map your neighborhoods, what I was thinking when you were talking about extending capacity, rather than trying to have them in each neighborhood, why not have a huge one downtown in the open city block and get communities involved to come down, take the DVD and, have some volunteer instructors as they set up their party and get together. It doesn't require money on our part. It's just getting everybody together in one backyard. One of the things you do is you pick out which house are we going to meet at when there's a crisis if we can't get out. So I think we could increase the ability of Santa Rosans to learn about this by having one big, huge thing and spending all the money in one spot instead of grants, because it's mostly you just have to get together with people. And I think you're exactly right on what the top 3 issues are: resources on fire and emergency. And I wanted to say that we were having an orientation for new homeowners the night of the earthquake. They were in a 1960s building, the Berger Auditorium. And right when they pulled up the slide that said emergency planning and evacuation, the earthquake happened. They had to get out of the building because it's an old building. And so I think the Neighborhood Fest thing could also, the title of it needs to be in such a way that you're letting people know this is how to be prepared for emergencies within the neighborhood. We call ours we had been having Firewise fairs, and now we're going to call them emergency fairs. And they would have food trucks. We have food trucks. We have all kinds of vendors. We have demonstrations. It's a very exciting, and a lot of people attend. Thank you.
Member Steffi, I saw your hand, not the virtual hand. I saw your actual hand. It looked like you might want to say, okay, good. I just want to check again. I do apologize. Just don't want to leave you out. Oh, yeah, go right ahead.
So thank you for that information, because it completely validates a yearly program that we try to launch called Wildfire Ready. And that we did hold in the square last year. Thank you so much to the CAB members that attended and helped us table and participated in that. I think, capacity is definitely a reason why we held it in May, because that's when wildfire season is declared. And then also it's so unpredictable that it's hard to plan and have SRPD Santa Rosa Fire Department available sometimes after that, because they need to be on call or so I would want to encourage the thought of supporting Wildfire Ready and maybe making Wildfire Ready a bigger event where we do invite community. And there are, did we have food? I think we had food. We had food, maybe, yes, there was food. But I think this, maybe what we can do with bringing in the neighborhoods is having, if there's like a neighborhood association, maybe they do a demonstration, or maybe they provide some sort of resource or opportunity. I mean, that's something that I think capacity wise would be a feasible thing for CAB and staff.
I love all the brainstorming, the conversation and thinking about resources, even if yes, there's 7 districts, but what if we broke it up into quadrants? So we did one on north, south, east, west, and we combined some of our neighborhoods. And then each neighborhood and district maybe have a booth or table where folks can check in at. So it's sort of regional, but also can help unify some of our neighborhoods and communities. Also being a parent, things like City Cup and our Parks and Rec are amazing opportunities to connect with families as well. So Rankin Valley Park and our soccer teams out there. So that could be another resource to talk, tapping in with Parks and Recs.
I love this. Keep it coming.
So you actually touched on, well, actually both member Harrell and then member Rodriguez touched on kind of what I was thinking was a pared down version. So yeah, to your point, member Rodriguez, maybe do one in Roseland, one in downtown, and then one at Oakmont. Because I think more or less that would cover most of the regions. And I think that might be a little bit more resource, feasible. I don't know for certain. I know the city's operating on a somewhat lean budget. So I would defer to staff and obviously their communications, other departments. Just want to make sure no one else wants to raise their hand. Well, is that sufficient for what you're looking for? Do we want to maybe drill down into something specific?
Yeah, I mean, if that is something that the CAB members feel is feasible in participating and helping us form committees for, to not only help us with the outreach, but potentially, brainstorming who are folks we need to be bringing at the table, who was missing at the table in CAB. And Danielle will absolutely drag me for this, but asking her to come and give a presentation about the success of Neighbor Fest. Because the more I tell her, like, no, you got to move on to your new position. I keep bringing her back in. So we'll ask her to give a presentation because you were 100% right. She will remember every date and color of the sunset that day. So yeah, happy to arrange for her to kind of give us the information of the program, the origin of it, and then synthesize what some outcomes were from when they were actually carried out. And then if from there we could start creating a game plan in terms of like what is feasible for our capacity here, then we can start getting city staff on board. And I think they can definitely show up to 4 events versus getting into all the neighborhoods. That is huge strain on fire. And also police who are participating in evacuations.
I have a question. So I like that idea. I mean, how many Neighbor Fests did they do a year? Do we know?
So we had a pilot year and then we had a full grant year. And off the top of my head, I know one of the two was bigger. And I want to say we got up to either 6 or 8 when we did that. It was a lot, which is the other reason why I like the idea of doing 4, because it's manageable. And the other thing I was going to tie back on is that if we are looking at doing these on more like a public or city space, maybe talking with Parks and Rec around having them. Because I was thinking about it, and I'm like, Coffee Park, Bear Farm, South Park, right? And in other words, those are pretty good sized parks, but they're also surrounded by neighborhoods. There's an opportunity for neighborhood outreach teams to drive the bus of like, we're going to have it here, but it could be a little bit broader too for the surrounding area. We could do a more radius model. That might be something that we could, chew off. What I do know though is I'm pretty sure Oakmont was like, I'm trying to think on the east side. I don't think we did one in Oakmont, and I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, I'm thinking we did East Santa Rosa, but I'm trying to think if we went as far east. That would be one of the things is figuring out if we, doing one that's just Oakmont centric, because although they've done a lot, right? Like they've done a lot of community engagement outreach because they've had to respond, and they have that narrow corridor where everyone has to be all hands on deck and get, if it's an evacuation order, they have to be all hands on deck and they have to work together to get out in a efficient timeline. But that might be one thing to look at is the parks. And in a dream world, since we do have these adopt a park cleaning events, just saying, something to think about is that combining efforts of maybe having a park cleanup / Neighbor Fest / just saying, like, it might be a win-win of like, hey, come out and help your local neighborhood park and barbecue. Just saying.
So I was saying that because it seems, I liked how Member Rodriguez was saying, I mean, I almost feel like if you did 7 to 8 before, you could almost do it by district. And because every district has their own needs that are different. You know, you have Fountain Grove, which hilly and different evacuation points than say Coffee Park or Roseland. Everybody's got a different scenario. Not to segregate, because I don't believe in this districts. I mean, everybody should be all about Santa Rosa. But I also believe that every district has their own needs, and then you can have that as a focal point of that district. And then you could actually budget for each district and see how that works. I mean, maybe the park, tying the park together, I just know that I'd rather have people cleaning up the park than eating food. So I don't want them standing around doing nothing. So as far as that goes, I think we should keep them separate.
Yeah, and I think in the case of Roseland, it'd be a great opportunity to once again partner with Matilde or other community partners to really put on a great event. I know when we did National Night Out, I felt like it was actually a pretty smashing success. Like we had a ton of people come out. We even had the Empire and the First Order visit us, so it was a really fun event. And I honestly, if we could actually get those folks involved, I think that would be great for families. Bring more people out, get them engaged. So yeah, I think the kind of pared down version of this could be a good opportunity. I guess we'll leave it to you to communicate with the other departments, see what they can offer us in terms of their capacity, and then in terms of the dates and the timeline, what would that look like?
I think, well, one, I would probably want like a strong, I don't know if this, because this is more of a discussion, but if I could just make the safe assumption that everybody's on board. And then kind of moving from that, then we probably would need somewhere around 6 months to plan it out. Just because we are looking at plenty of time to do the outreach, making sure we're getting all the community members that we want to make sure, because to Member Rom's point, like you're 100% right when it comes to evacuation routes. They're all going to look different according to the district that they're located in. And that is such an important item to discuss. And at Wildfire Ready, we did partner with CAL FIRE and Sonoma Fire District to talk about what are the fire districts, because we have, a regular city district limits, and there are fire districts and fire very specific lines that have been drawn that will not necessarily change anytime soon. And so helping the community understand at what point do you call Santa Rosa Fire Department, or what point do you have to call one of the other agencies, right? Because maybe it's a little outside of city limits or unincorporated area or something. So yeah, so 6 months minimally, we want to plan something out. And then to get a firm, are we doing in quadrants, or we are looking at each district?
I think we were discussing like quadrants, correct? Yeah, so I would say, Roseland, downtown, Oakmont, and then what would be the fourth one? Coffee Park?
But you're looking at like Bennett Valley, and they have their own needs. Lincoln Valley has their own. So I really think it should be more district. I mean, that's my 2 cents. You have the people in Fountain Grove that back the county, Reevely and Mark West, and they've had their own brunt with the fire. And then you have the Bennett Valley people that have their own. I do a lot of work and drive in a lot of these rural areas, and it's amazing the pockets of neighbors that they only have one way out, and they're different than downtown or Roseland. Roseland can go east, west, south. Those hilly areas, they only have a few outlets. So I really think it should be more distant. That's my opinion.
And Member Harrell, I do apologize. I'm sure you've been waiting again patiently. Please go right ahead.
Well, I was going to say that Oakmont has plans already for an emergency preparedness, Firewise and earthquake for next year. The only thing we could need help from would be possibly the money for food. But other than that, we have the person power. We have one person who, Katie Carroll, who is our community Map Your Neighborhood leader. I mean, you could talk with her, but she is a master at doing this. She's done these 2 years in a row, and she's had, the Paul Lowenthal's out here. We have all kinds of specialists out here, and they volunteer their time to do this. So we had Sonoma Ecology Center included. So I'd love it that you're doing it. I think we won't draw much of your person power. We could use some help on the food costs, but other than that, we can run it, and you can give us any other guidelines that you want. But Katie Carroll has done a masterful job here. We've had a huge turnout. And I did want to say one more thing about the cleanup idea. What you could have is just a sign up, set a cleanup day in a district and just trying to get volunteers. Because if you're picking up trash, as well as you could be picking up some dead stuff and putting it in a yard waste, so it's not there to make embers. I mean, but I do think they should be separate events.
So what if the proposal is, Magali, you will go speak with the staff of various departments, see what their, available resources are that they can offer us. And if it's, able to accommodate potentially doing it by district, great, let's do it. If not, we'll pare it back and we'll go to a more smaller scale, perhaps for events as opposed to district. Does that sound good with everyone? Yeah?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, if there's any final comments, now is the chance. All right, seeing none, I'd like to go to public comment. Do we have anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak?
There are no hands raised for virtual public comment and no public comment in the room.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. With that, we will close public comment and we will proceed to item 6.2, which kind of segues off of this conversation. Discussion of disaster and emergency resource preparedness. Full disclosure, I was the one that advanced this item. I felt it was incredibly germane, following the recent earthquakes, to have this conversation and to maybe drill down into a discussion of, do we want to try to promote CERT training? Is this perhaps a great opportunity to engage with our neighbors and start that conversation again, to kind of jumpstart those relationships and perhaps even use it as a way to really kind of bring back together some of our neighborhood groups? So I just wanted to put that conversation out, see if anyone had some thoughts, and see if we could perhaps, generate some ideas in terms of sharing information. There's a litany of resources out there, but I, for one, and this is why I brought it forward, am totally unprepared for an earthquake, it turns out, or a fire for that matter. I have no to-go bag. It turns out I talked with some of my neighbors, and actually 2 out of 4 of them were prepared. So I was like, okay, that's pretty good. But I was not. So that's again part of the reason I wanted to bring this forward. And so with that, if anyone would like to weigh in, I certainly welcome it.
I'll jump in and say, I think it's important to revisit. I've lived in 2 communities here in Santa Rosa, and one house swayed and this house I'm currently living in shook like a blender. So I think being able to have a little checklist of things to look for, because now we're still finding cracks in the wall that weren't there time and time before. At what point do we help people understand, both the preparedness of having a bag to go, but even just what to do when it stopped shaking. We realized all of our neighbors were outside, which you're not supposed to do, but everyone was outside. So just those little memories or reminders to remember what you're supposed to do in those moments, I think would be really helpful. And I think we could play a really key role as district representatives in shepherding the information that already exists out there. I'm not a fan of Nextdoor, but I will use it for beneficial purposes to educate the people around me.
Member Harrell, go right ahead.
I was going to say that the person who is in charge of Map Your Neighborhood, promoting Map Your Neighborhood here in Oakmont, she also has a website with very short tips. One is about how to, have a go bag for your pet. What do you, I mean, when you have 30 minutes to leave, and have, so she has these tips that have come over time since 2017, where the Rainbow Women in Oakmont put together an emergency manual by pooling our different expertise and research. But she's just got it in bits so that people don't feel overwhelmed. And if that might be helpful handouts. I think we should focus on, if we're going to do emergency preparedness type thing, we should focus on maybe having it come through the Neighbor Fest, and just it will cover fire and earthquake, and having tips to hand out for people to take home, websites to go to just for this, or links, that if we focused all of our energy into 6.1 and 6.2, which to me emerged in terms of our discussion, that would be the most effective thing we could do.
Anyone else? Well, I completely agree. I think that's a wonderful point, and it's a great way to kind of kill two birds with one stone, if you'll pardon that older phrase. But I think it's important that we take the opportunity while this is fresh in everyone's memory to kind of take action on this, because while we just did have, recently obviously have a decent rain, that certainly doesn't, put us out of the woods yet in terms of the wildfire risk. And so I just think that the season is now. We should be having this conversation. Now, I guess my question to staff would be, what sort of material resources do we currently have available that maybe we could scavenge or source from other departments that we could take door to door? Is there a consolidated pamphlet that already exists, or something that we could, as Member Lange put it, if we could shepherd some resources, through next door? What do you have for us?
Yes, thank you. I know that our communications department has produced a lot of materials. But I think when you talk about the earthquake element, I'm not sure if that, those sort of next steps are on there, or resources. So I think this is a good time to sort of bring this up to city staff around what is currently available, what do we have on hand? And also, do we have it available in a bilingual format? Do we have it available in accessible format? I know there was a conversation we were having about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, during the glass fire, of potentially producing kind of those little magnets that give you top 10 phone numbers that and we were talking about adding the fire districts to that. So I think there's a good amount of opportunity. So I think it's going to be about, looking for what the current resources are. Danny, so you're going to be working on that. What are the current resources available that we have to the community? And if there are pieces that need to be incorporated, who can we partner with, right? Because I know that event you mentioned that was in Roseland with the county.
Member Steffi, or okay, no. All right, that's fantastic. Yeah, because I mean, everyone am completely on board with, if you were to give me some physical materials, I have no problem taking an hour or so out of my weekend to just go door to door and use it as an opportunity to get to know my neighbors a little bit better, and then take advantage again of that opportunity to really start establishing some sort of connections. And I think hopefully we could then leverage that into really just getting us back on track, and hopefully and headed into, I guess, a brighter and vibrant and community-oriented future. So yeah, that would be wonderful if you could put that information together and share it. That would be great. And then we could get right on top of distributing it. And then as Member Harold noted, it looks like she'd like to speak in, but as she noted, yeah, obviously, Neighbor Fest or those regional ones are a great opportunity. Member Harold, did you want to say something else?
Well, in terms of materials, we have, I mean, we've been using from Fire Sonoma, and Roberta McIntyre. They have handouts. We can get handouts that are already made that we don't have to, put together. It's a matter of just getting them. One of them was on that we give out to. We have a Firewise resource committee that have been trained assessors from Fire Safe Sonoma, and they're if a homeowner wants to have one, it's not reported to the architectural committee about whether they're in or out of fire danger or whatever, but they get educated and they get a written report, and they get these two handouts. One is how to harden your home, and how to prepare for wildfire. So those are already done. Actually, we got some from the fire department. So just printing those, they're really excellent.
Wonderful, thank you. Member Steffi, go right ahead.
Finally, I actually want to talk this time. There's a glitch apparently. I'm sorry. I've been annoying to look at on the screen. My question is, when you start talking, Cal, about like going door to door, and I'm thinking to myself, our districts are still pretty darn big, right? And I know months ago I worked with Danielle because the JC Neighborhood Association approached me, and it's a long story short, they wanted to reinvigorate because they kind of lost their steam, when COVID happened. So I did a bunch of research, as did Danielle, on ways to get neighborhood groups either created or reinvigorated. Because even like an apartment complex can be a neighborhood group, right? They're not all houses. So I feel like I have a bunch of research that I've done, and websites and tips and tricks, and kind of simple. If we find someone in an apartment complex who wants to be in charge, we can easily kind of help them take that role. And I feel like that's the missing element. If we have these district or quadrant events for safety, still there's just so many people in each quadrant or each district. So if we have like a leader in an apartment complex or a small neighborhood. Got a bunch of resources. I sent them to Chair Graves months ago, and I've still got them. So wherever that fits in, let me know, because I've got it. Thank you.
Yeah, Member Barnett, go right ahead.
So as you brought this up, I did my own little grocery outlet City of Santa Rosa web search, and we have a page dedicated just to earthquakes. And the cool thing about it, it would translate really easily into a pamphlet because it's before, during, and after.
Great.
Or as I'm looking through this going, nope, didn't do that. Didn't do any of those. Definitely didn't do any of that, right? Because I'm like looking at what you're supposed to do afterwards, and I'm like, nope, didn't do that, didn't do that. So if I didn't do any of those things, might be helpful to produce something that we can go out and distribute and or turn into, just because the thing about this is I'm looking at it and going, it could be a little more readable in the form of a PDF that could be sent out digitally, including in the city newsletter. But if but it translates really well into what could become also a pamphlet. And then they also have the information on the Great California Shakeout website, because we all did really good job of blaming Mayor Rogers because it was Rogers' fault. But I think that the wake-up call from all of this was that wasn't we know about this fault line, but the bigger issue is that we're due. In fact, we're probably overdue. And so this was a good reminder, but between now and 100 years, we need to get ready for something that's going to be far more catastrophic. And the big one that we brought up at NeighborFest, because a lot of folks, here's the thing, we're all really good at the evacuation and get out of Dodge model, right? We're really good at the evacuation thing now, right? Like, we have been tested multiple times on this. The problem is earthquakes oftentimes are the opposite of that. It's a shelter in place situation. And while we got really somewhat good at that for the past 2 years, there's some really key components around it that are slightly, that we got to get, we got to get on, all right, how many of y'all got 3 days worth of water at your house? I don't. So, right, right, Steve, right? All right, you're in charge, Steve. But the trade-off is that I don't know about y'all, but I depend on my grocery store that's down the block. That's literally my pantry, right? Well, in a shelter-in-place situation, guess what? The distribution line stops. So you might want to be a little bit more prepared right now. And I think my family would eat each other before we would be prepared for a 3-day shelter-in-place situation, because we're just kind of banking on civilization right now. It's the perks of living in a great neighborhood, but we're not entirely realistic. So I'm just going to suggest, and I can ping this over to you after the meeting, Magali, that the stuff that's on there already, I think translates beautifully into a pamphlet that could be like, because it's literally like before, during, and after. And then the flip side of that is that the PDF version of that would probably be easy enough to share. And I know Danielle's already like, no, because she's going to end up probably working with Danny on the production side. But I think this is one of those things that could come out. I think it's doable because a lot of the stuff's already there. So,
Member Rodriguez.
Speaking of water, the water department is great at putting inserts into the bills, and an informational insert with the resources that you mentioned, the numbers, would be a wonderful way to get information out.
Oh,
Member Harold, did you want to say something else?
yeah, I was going to pick up on your comment about door to door. I think that between NeighborFest, door to door should, I think, be somebody in your own neighborhood. Like if you're going to go for 20 homes in your neighborhood, that's doable. And those are people that know you or should know you. But to go down to the street somewhere where people don't know you, they might think you're just, checking out the house to see if you can rob it later. I mean, I mean, not you personally, but, so I'm thinking that we should, we're talking about map your neighborhood. It's when they talk about fire safety, they say start from your door and go out. The first 5 feet, then 5 feet to 30. If we're going to try to pass this information along and get it working and get map your neighborhoods, we need to start with our own neighborhoods. For instance, and so I think if we were going to commit to something door to door, we could see if we can get our own neighborhood of 20 homes into a map your neighborhood where we know each other. We have a plan. We know who has a saw. We know who can't ride or drive, and that type of thing, or who to call, what family member to call for the neighbor who might be stuck. Well, I think the shelter in place is really a very good point that you've made. It's that's the total opposite of what we've been becoming skilled at. And that's something that I just don't think my going over to another part of Santa Rosa and doing the door to door. I want to, we've got 4,700 people here that we're going to continue to work on. And I think it's more personal if it's your neighborhood.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When I frequently walk and bike around my neighborhood, and I think, at least within a 2-block radius, I'd like to think most people wouldn't think I'm suspect and trying to case their house because I'm a pretty frequent person on the scene. But I do agree. Yeah, we also have to think about our own personal, capacity, what we can do. But that's why I think, having a medium like social media is a great tool to have a broader reach. So we could, combine it to kind of a hybrid, just like we're doing here, a kind of a hybrid approach where, we do a little bit of door-to-door canvassing, but then we could predominantly rely on social media. So perhaps staff can, I don't know if you already have this or not, but maybe they could synthesize both fire and earthquake information into like, a really neat kind of post, like, a variety of different posts that we can put on Twitter, Instagram, hell, maybe it's even a great opportunity to try to, make a foray into TikTok. I don't know if the city does that, but maybe we get creative with it. That might be a little bit too much though. Well, let's get a San Rosa TikTok going. And then obviously, a post for next door would be wonderful. Because it's its own unique platform. Member Inocencio.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Yeah, my question is kind of, and just kind of thinking out loud, but really is do we have data to inform some of the outreach that we're trying to do? I feel like, especially since the fires, we've been kind of blanketed with emergency preparedness. I feel like I personally know a lot of resources, but I'm wondering, who doesn't know, and should we be targeting, or if we can, target information to those who don't know, right? Especially with fires. So that's the first question, or first thing I want to bring up is, do we have data to help us to help inform our decisions, or just to help guide us, right? So we have, so that our effort is well targeted, right? And then the second thing too is, one thing that I've noticed for people who are missing some emergency preparedness information are new residents to the city. And I don't know if there's any like new resident package or something that our community engagement can identify or can deliver to, because in times of emergency, I feel like if you're new to the city, or even if you've left the city and came back, things change. So maybe there's something targeted there. Yeah, it's really just those two. One, do we have data on this, on what people know about emergency preparedness and what they don't know? And then is there anything that we can target specifically to new residents of Santa Rosa?
I'm deferring to staff on that one.
I really like that idea of, if you are like a new member, you're new in town, and because it seems like a lot of folks who've been here at least since 2017 kind of understand the drill now, unfortunately. But you're right. And also people who are visiting, we do have many visitors, and unfortunately, if something is to happen, I don't think they would be as prepared, right? So is the ask to house something like that on our website, or if I can get a little more clarification.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. Like, if you're new here or something like that, some sort of resource specifically for that. And then the other is not really an ask, it's just a question I had is, do we have data on how well the community feels that they are prepared for an emergency?
I can definitely find out from our fire and emergency management department if they've collected any surveys on that, or information, or done studies, which I'm sure they do have some level of information.
Yeah, because I think that would help guide some of this, some of our discussion here. But yeah.
Thank you.
Member Harrell.
I think it was great that you brought up the new residents, because there's a lot of new residents coming into Santa Rosa. We have it here in Oakmont, and they're completely, naive about. We've started creating a welcome package, and we have one page on, about this is a beautiful place. You need to learn more about emergency in case there is one, and here are the links for you. But does Santa Rosa have a welcome package? Maybe it could be put online. That's just a thought, so that new residents really feel we can give them a jump start.
I was just going to comment real quick. I don't think we have anything physical, but the only way I could imagine that we be able to figure that out would be through postal code data, which that would be a little bit tricky trying to determine if you're just moving from. It might be possible that could be a heavy lift, so maybe digitizing it might be a better approach, but I don't know. What are you thinking, Magali?
I would say even working with EDB and going through the business network and the chamber, so that the business, like if you're hiring somebody who's moving from Montana, they're not from here, and you would be able to say, here's what you'll need to know about preparing for disaster. And I think partnering with the city and leveraging to work with the county, EDB will be able to help that. So I think the business owners are the ones who are doing the hiring. They would know who's here and not from here. But I think if there's something visible on the city website too that says, hey, are you new? Here's everything you need to know to prepare for the things we've endured. And then I think what I will personally take away from this conversation is leveraging my role on the tourism board to also add that they put that as a part of the visitor experience. Because there have been people who still are hell-bent on visiting during disaster. And I think they need some resources to navigate their experience while they're here so that it's not too complicated for their time and stay.
Yeah, that's a great idea. EDB, the Metro Chamber, tourism. Yeah, that would be, they're great resources.
I'd love to add in the North Bay Realtors Association.
Mhm. Yeah.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So did that just become a cab item to work on? So maybe we can circle back to a committee on like what that could look like, what information folks would need. And I really love that idea of like, so you came here in October, here's a brochure.
Time to bring back subcommittees. Go right ahead, Member Barnett.
I was about to say that we haven't ever, as far as I know, done a Welcome to Santa Rosa or Welcome New Resident Day for the city. But maybe it's time to implement something like that for the Community Advisory Board of having a Welcome to Santa Rosa resource fair. Because in the last 3 years, if you moved to Santa Rosa, you may or may not know about all the things going on. And that might be something to think about, not just on a resource level, but also just on welcome to the coolest city in the country. We have the #1 beer in the world, you're welcome. And go from there. But I'm serious, right? Like, we don't have, I mean, we're talking about disaster preparedness. I realize all of that, but we're all here for a reason. I was born here because I'm that special. But if you moved here in the last 3 years, it's entirely possible that you are having the experience that has been mostly virtual. And you may be aware, if you've read the news, that we do have major disasters here and that you are in a wilderness corridor, and that's half of it. But the other half of it also of that, this is an interconnected community and that you came in during the pandemic, welcome. And by the way, we have this downtown square, we have this, general plan we're working on, and it's already pretty amazing here, but we're working on some other things. Maybe you'd like to participate. So that might be something to consider. I don't know if I have to go down the subcommittee route, but this might be something to consider when you've hired this new staff person and we come back in November, our last meeting, or we're doing the combo meeting in November, December, right? All right. I'll bring tacos next month. So, so that meeting, that might be something to consider calendaring of like Welcome to Santa Rosa event in the spring of 2023. And actually considering it of just kind of an open invitation event, and that you're right, we have all this research of who's moved here in the last, say, 3 years. That might be a nice, opportunity to here's some information and some resources, but also welcome to Santa Rosa. We'd love to meet you. Join a border commission. We're hiring.
I would add in that we partner with Visit Santa Rosa specifically on that initiative so that they can share the load of the responsibility and provide additional resources that all of our volunteer selves do not possess.
Ironically enough, I think the woman that's now leading Visit Santa Rosa is new to the city herself, if I recall correctly. Also, I can say I know at least 5 people who fit that exact role. Like they came here a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, and their entire experience is obviously jaded by this global pandemic. So I think that's a really great idea and something certainly worth exploring, and hopefully can leverage some resources towards that. Now, I just want to make sure, because I see a hand for Member Inocencio and Member Steffi. Just want to be certain that I'm not, all right, it looks like they're.
I would like to state here, sorry, Vice Chair, I did confirm with our IT department that it is a Zoom feature where it's trying to detect gestures, but there are some glitches within it. So yes, I do apologize. Those virtual hands are not actually raised.
Wonderful. I'm just seeing it on the screen, so I didn't want you guys to feel left out. All right, so does staff need any more direction, or is that?
I think that those are a lot of really great events, and we will definitely come back at next meeting to make sure we captured all of that correctly. And then maybe just start breaking out into sort of like some work group style. And again, I will check with the CAB guru, Ms. Danielle, on if that's permissible or not, because she usually comes out with the ruler and lets me know when I can't do that. So yeah, we'll definitely have more information for you all and synthesize this at our next meeting.
Sorry to jump in.
No.
Does the city have like emergency prepared kits? I mean, I know after 2017, the county did something. Did the city do anything similar? So my train of thought was that working with the Realtors Association, there can be a voucher to new residents where they can pick it up at the city or something like that. Pick up an emergency preparedness backpack.
Yeah.
Set up an event, they could just pick it up as they move it.
Or what about like the postal service? Like, I think everyone knows when you move, the postal service sends you something and then they send you a bunch of mostly useless coupons that I personally have never used. Okay, apparently some folks have used them, but I've personally never taken advantage of them. But I mean, this might be bigger than we could actually take on, but partnering with the postal service or some sort of entity that can help us deliver this information directly
Western
to them.
Community Ed. They have the backpacks.
Yes.
And Zumba on Thursdays at the Veterans Facility.
True. And also, we do have NOAA radios that we give out at events. I know we do have those, but 100%, there are nonprofits who already have these kits like ready to go. So maybe we can circle around to our partners and see who's got what, and then create some kits that, you know, we'd love to start inviting people onto City Hall so we can show them, you know, where council meetings take place and just the various offices like right at council chambers.
Okay, not to add one more event, but because you said that, what if, you know, twice a year you offered a like City Hall tour, like a welcome to Santa Rosa thing?
Like an open house that I've always wanted to host.
Yes.
If CAB will commit to it, we can definitely do it because it's just a matter of asking departments to show up on, most likely if we want to get our best turnout, a Saturday, maybe for about 2 hours and get people familiar with where people get their bus passes, where people pay bills.
So think about the young woman that we ran into last Friday. Like the directory, I didn't know how to help, so that's why I left. But I hope you were able to help her.
We worked it out.
Okay.
But you're right. We do run into that. I've run into that a couple times. So I think it's important for folks to get a tour and open house style showcase.
And since the mayor's on the phone or on the Zoom up there somewhere.
He actually had to
we could
jump
have
off.
Too bad, because we have a meet and greet for the mayor that day too.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna say, have the council members show up, fire, police, all the essential services, all on site. It's an opportunity to engage with folks, ask questions. So a resource fair, but it could be actually hosted at City Hall as opposed to downtown Santa Rosa. Which are actually not that far away, but you know, we'll find a way to make it work. But I think that's a terrific idea. And plus it'd be a really great opportunity, I think, to get people potentially comfortable entering into the City Hall chamber. I mean, it's a challenge, you know, even in my role with what I do, trying to get people to feel comfortable going to that room and not being intimidated by these actually just very normal people sitting behind a dais. It's still very intimidating. So I think it'd be really important.
Thank you. So it sounds like we got about 5 or 6 events and initiatives. So we will come back and ask to identify top 3 because I'd like to still work here next year. Thank you.
Or see which ones could be merged together.
Yeah, yes, we don't want to lose you. Member Harrell.
Yeah, you're talking about my favorite subject, this emergency stuff. So I'm sorry for, keep raising my hand, but the NOAA radios are really a hot item. People love those that were donated here. But what we had was somebody there who was a techie who could set it up for them before they left the fair. Because there's a lot of people who just, they take it, they go home, and then they get flummoxed by setting it up. So I think if we're going to give those away and make them effective, we need to have somebody there to explain it to them, set it up, and that makes it effective rather than something sitting in a box when they get home. And I love the idea of a city hall tour because you're right. I bet there are people who lived here for 20, 30 years don't even know where City Hall is, unless you're going to for a building department or, attending a public meeting, which that many people don't do. I think it's a great idea to maybe get more interest and comfort in knowing we have a city hall where it is, all that. I think that's a brilliant idea. And that could be added, that could be part of the new residence stuff. Those two could go together, I think. And I won't say anything else tonight.
I'm always personally worried that people will go by City Hall and just think it's a tomb and then, keep on driving. I think it's really great that we consider moving forward with some sort of welcome to Santa Rosa event, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I guess staff, you'll put this together for us and then come back and we can make some decisions at the next meeting and then proceed from there. And with that, are there any other additional comments, questions, anything that people want to add? Seeing none, I will close our conversation and open up to public comment.
There are no hands raised for virtual public comment and no public comment in the room.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. With that, we will move on to item 6.3, issues of concerns to city residents. Would anyone like to comment? Member Lange.
So I have been driving around the city quite a bit, looking for issues of concern. And I have noticed that not all bus stops are created equal. And I don't know what the financial infrastructure is within the city to address that, but I live off of Steele and Marlowe, and those bus stops are just a sign with a concrete bench. The schedule is 3 years old. I went out to Rankin Valley and they had a swanky little bench with a nice little signage that was updated and it was covered and it was put together. Then when I was in Roseland, there was a sign, no bench and no sidewalk, and you had to go around the bus. And when I was in South Park, very similar situation. And then when I was on Santa Rosa Avenue, it had become a residence. And so, what does it look like in some of the other work I do with transportation advocacy groups to increase the interest of ridership, especially for young people? If that's your main, and folks with all backgrounds, if that's your main means of transportation, we get sun and beaming heat, we get rain and cold days. Like, if that's not a comfortable place to sit for the bus that we know that takes at least an hour to come sometimes, like, how are we promoting positively the use of public transportation? And how are we incentivizing people to view becoming a driver, which we know we're short on, to be able to engage in it if you as a driver can't even sit at a bus stop for a break in between, depending on what your route is. So just want to throw that out there as an item of personal concern, because I've lived in cities where the public transportation works really effectively. And I'd really love to get to the point where I don't have to drive as much anymore. But if it's going to take me 2 hours to go 2 miles, I might as well get behind the wheel.
So are we interested in getting a presentation by the transit office? Because I think there's been a lot of great programs around trying to get use on the buses with free bus passes. And I think you posed really great questions like, what is the process? Is there a process to report the state of some of the bus stops? And is there a process to, renovate or what that looks like? So I think that would be a great item for them to present on.
And I guess my question is, our new city manager, I mean, she's still very new, so I'm sure she hasn't had a chance to absorb everything. But I'm wondering if she's aware of something like this, because I think that's wonderful. I've not actually noticed that or gone to such effort, so I really appreciate that. Especially as someone that kind of works in that field, kind of adjacent. I love that. So I think I saw kind of nods all around that. Yeah, we would most certainly welcome a presentation on that.
Not to mention, they just introduced the first electric bus and they got another one coming. And so we're promoting that. I mean, we are the same boat. We have about 3 stops from Coffee Park. One's a residence. One has a garbage can that I empty every couple of weeks. Usually it's a half bottle of vodka. And then there's another one that's just a post with a sign on it.
That electric vehicle celebration was where the pettiness of this came from.
I will share some of the kids in Rankin Valley do like the free buses because they will ride their bikes to downtown and then bring the bus back.
All excellent points. Does anyone else have a particular concern that they would like to raise right now? I'm looking around the Zoom world. I'm looking in the room. I'm seeing nothing. With that, I believe we can also open it up to public comment. So we proceed.
There are no hands raised for virtual public comment and no public comment in the room.
Wonderful. All right. Moving right along. Actually, this is a perfect transition. Item number 7, future agenda items. Member Burnett.
I would just like item number D to get kicked up a notch because we just had this conversation about transit equity. But the My Santa Rosa app, I find myself to be somewhat tech savvy, but I just don't. I've like gone on there and looked at it. And what I'm not understanding on it is when you submit a request, where does it go? What kind of a follow-up do you get? Because I'm not seeing that feedback loop on there. And then the other component with it is that if we want to address these city issues like the bus stop issue, I would like to use the My Santa Rosa app because to me, that just seems like a fast, efficient way. But I want to make sure there's an effective feedback loop of if we go out, bring up an issue of concern, that's going to get addressed. So that I would just like to see it elevated on the list of just the user experience with it. And then also because they do have a mapping feature on there and you can look at all the submission points. And I kind of have questions about that of what does the city determine when it gets checked, like did the resident that submitted get notified that, hey, by the way, we fixed it, right? Questions like that.
Well, I've used that app about 1 million times and done a lot of research on it. And yeah, I would love to see that. I want to move that up too, because what I understand right now is when that box is checked, it has been given to an department to take care of it. It has nothing means with resolution, doesn't mean anything. It just means that, oh, there's garbage on this street. It's been given to transportation, box checked. Garbage is still sitting there. There's no feedback to say resolved. It has been delegated.
Again, all wonderful points. Member Harrell.
I would like to see the Santa Rosa General Plan update moved up too, because they're working pretty furiously on that right now and they're getting ready to release. I think it would be good for us as our committee to really be updated with where they're at when they're ready to release, which is pretty soon, but maybe before the year ends of our meetings. That was just a suggestion.
Yes, it is incredibly important document. So yeah, I completely agree. Member Lynch?
Last thing I'll add, can item G get tied into our January meeting or maybe February once the Seed Collaborative report is available? Because I think that'll inform what actually was uncovered through all of this discovery work that's been done in the triage process.
Oh, I'm taking one more look around the virtual world. I'm looking back into the room. Oh, Member Barnett.
The question I have about is, I don't even know what the city of Santa Rosa is calling it now, but we had the presentation on the Cahoots program coming to Santa Rosa and it being in a pilot form. I also know we have a new chief of police. So I don't think we're anywhere near the 1 year mark, but it would be great if we could know when we get close to the 1 year mark. I don't expect the chief of police to come in and give a presentation, but he, I want to say he may have given the he gave the initial. So something that would be interesting from our side, because I think we get all the questions from residents about what do we do to address homeless issues, homeless crisis. And this was a direct response from those inquiries. So I think it would be great to know.
Yeah, if I can just add, I know they've already collected some amount of data in the short time they've been operating. So I definitely will ask their team if they have folks available to come in and present the data that they collected thus far and all the wonderful work that they've been doing.
I'm sure Chief Cregan has plenty of time to come give the presentation himself. I'm sure he'll also really appreciate that comment. Okay, once again, I'm taking a pass, nothing in the virtual world, nothing in the room here. With that, I will close our comment and open up the public.
There are no hands raised for virtual public comment and no public comment in the room.
All right, with that, we are on our final item for the night. That is going to be adjournment. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I second the motion.
And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. This has been wonderful, and I'm very happy to have us back here together. Bye, virtual friends.